Hi, my name is Anthony. I'm in the new brands department here at Summit Racing, and this is my '76 Nova. It's a 1976 Chevy Nova. It's been in my family since 1989, and I bought it from my dad 2 years ago. Basically, my dad bought it in 1989 from one of his friends who was the original owner. He owned it through the 90s. It's basically the car that made me a car guy. In 97, he sold it to my uncle. My uncle owned it until about '03, and my dad bought it back in '03. And then around that time was when I got my license. And he was showing me how to drive stick. The transmission, just from years of abuse, ended up basically getting stuck in gear when I was trying to drive it, and got it towed back home. My dad tore it apart at that point, and it didn't see daylight until I pulled it out of his garage 2 years ago. Towed it out, got it to my house, got a whole trunk full of parts, the engine block, a couple pairs of heads, couple intakes, couple carburetors. The transmission was rebuilt back in '03, so I didn't really touch that. So I went through the whole motor. It's been years since I touched a motor, so it was kind of a learning experience, and sent the block out to the machine shop, cleaned it up for me, went 30 over with it, assembled it myself. So just, factory rods, factory crank, trick flow cam in it. All the parts I got from Summit Racing. I got, all the rod and main bearings are Summit branded. Intake I reused from my father. It's an old Edelbrock Scorpion intake. I'm running Dart aluminum heads, Holley carburetor. First time I ever rebuilt a carburetor in my life was last year. So I figured out how to do that. Got it dialed in with some help of coworkers on how to tune it. And has long tube headers into true dual exhaust out the back. Runs pretty good so far. I wanted to own this vehicle because it's basically the car that made me a car guy growing up, going to car shows with my dad in the car, going to drag strips. Like we went to Dragway 42, Norwalk all the time. There's 3 cassette tapes that he had in the car when we went to the car show. So it was always Black Sabbath, Guns N' Roses, and the Beach Boys. And so those are like the 3 things that stuck out to me growing up driving this car. When I had the opportunity to buy it from him, I wanted to be able to do the same thing with my family. It came to me as a roller. First got it home, it was covered in a layer of dust, probably 1-inch layer of dust. So first thing I did was put my kids to work. We all washed the car. I took off the wheels and tires. The wheels were, they're chrome wheels from the early 90s and had a bunch of surface rust on them. So I had my kids with a toothbrush and chrome polish them up. Had my son help me bleed the brakes. It's always a thing to pass down from your father to son, to have your son bleed the brakes for you. So he was pumping, I was bleeding. The car's an original 32,000 mile car when I bought it. And so there's hardly any rust on it whatsoever. So everything just comes right off. No issues with rust. Being in Ohio and the salt and stuff, you always have to worry about that when you're buying a car. And I didn't have to worry about this at all because it's garage kept. So once I went through all the brake lines, fuel lines, I replaced all the fuel lines with new rubber hoses and clamps, new fuel pump, and then I basically went through the motor, rebuilt the whole motor. And then this past winter, my big project was redoing the interior. When my dad bought the car, he bought it from his friend. His friend bought this brand new, and he used it to drag race. So he had several different transmissions out of there. Apparently back in the early 80s, there's no such thing as a Sawzall or a cutoff wheel, because he basically took a set of tin snips and a hammer and just tore up the middle of the center console. So I welded in a new piece to make it nice around the shifter. I installed Summit sound deadener and heat barrier, and then put some new carpet in, new shifter boot around the shifter. One of the last things I did to the car was put some new tires on it. Got Mickey Thompson drag radials out back and some Mickey Thompson Sportsmans up front. The favorite thing about my car would probably be the way it sounds. Being a 4-speed with basically long tube headers into true duals. You rev this thing out, it sounds awesome. My neighbors across the street, they basically said that They don't know if it's thunder, thunder when I start my car, or if it's actually my car. One of the YouTube channels I follow, Vice Grip Garage, he always says, "Bring the thunder." So I bring the thunder. Well, my favorite activity with the car is basically just to drive it. And you know, when my dad drove it in the 90s, you know, it was basically a Saturday night car. It was, you know, go to the car show drag strip every once in a while. I try to drive it as much as I can, and that's what the car is made for. The paint itself is old. It was probably repainted in the mid 80s. I don't care if my kids scratch it or if it gets dinged in a parking lot. It's not gonna matter to me. So I try to drive this any chance I get. So if I go, my daughter has softball practice, I'm taking her to softball practice in it. The only downside of that is the price of gas right now, 93 octane, and the gas mileage isn't the greatest, so I'm spending a little bit more money on gas nowadays. So my kids love the car. My youngest, it's her favorite thing to do. So she helped me with a lot of different things in the car. She helped me with the interior. She helped put the sound deadener down. She helped me put the carpet in. She helped me screw all the trim back in place. She helped me with the wheels, tires. You know, anytime I'm out in the garage, she wants to be out there with me. As soon as we had the first nice day this year, she's like, "Can we go for a ride in the Nova?" Justin, which you guys have probably seen on throughout our YouTube channel, he jokes with me that it's not my car. It's actually Riley's car. I'm just paying for it. So. So some of my responsibilities at Summit Racing is I'm on the new brands team. The first responsibility is to onboard new brands. The second responsibility, our team is made up of what we call market specialists. The market specialists all own a market. For example, my market that I'm responsible for is Jeep. We have someone that's responsible for drag race. We have someone responsible for restoration, pro touring, tools. What I mean by responsible for that is that they look at the market as if they were a customer, and they look at trends and what customers want and make sure that we have those brands available for the customers. The team is also helping set the direction for Summit Racing to make sure that we're presenting ourselves in the correct manner for those markets. So anything that you see in our catalogs, magazine ads, our website presence, our team has a hand in making sure that we have the right stuff in the right spots. So being an actual car enthusiast in our position is quite critical. You couldn't take someone from the street and throw them in this position and say, "Hey, we want you to onboard these brands," or "We want you to evaluate this market," or, you know, "Hey, what part should go in this catalog," or, you know, all the above, because you got to be an enthusiast for your market, because you need to know and live and breathe what customers are doing. So you have to be in tune with the market. I'm always fiddling with the Nova. I was always fiddling with Jeeps. I know kind of what customers need because I'm doing it myself. You know, I'm out there building things. It definitely helps when you're an enthusiast in this role. You understand what customers need. Customers have an advantage buying from Summit Racing because we have so many enthusiasts working for us. So whether you call us up on the phone, you walk into one of our retail stores, or even like you ask a question on our website or any of our social channels, you're gonna get an enthusiast that's going to answer your question or try to help you any way they can. There's a lot of thought that goes into the descriptive attributes that are on our website that help you make a buying decision. So the more information that we're able to provide you guys, you know, the better off the buying experience is going to be for the customer.